Hello, hello, good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever. So here is a video that I will not promise will be quick or not. On close reading. So you're gonna have a poem that you're gonna have to do a little bit of close reading on, as long as research, because as I'm gonna explain here, lots of close reading comes with prior knowledge, or if you don't have the prior knowledge, you have to build that knowledge. It's not necessarily just looking at the words and kind of seeing how they go together. It's about pairing, um, history, artist technique, social context, all of that together to get a better idea of what is the writing actually about. So I've chosen to model close reading with an old, boring poem that I love. And I've chosen it because I've analyzed it so many times, I can do it super easily. So the speed that I do this is honestly pretty fake because I've done it many times before. So we got Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. Um, okay, once again, walk through how you might close read. So, first, whenever we close read, we just read the whole poem, line by line. We're thinking, but we're not doing super intense analysis yet because I don't actually know. Let's say this is the first time I've read it. I don't know where it goes. So I'll read it. Nature's first green is gold. Her heart is hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, and nothing gold can stay. Side note: see how I paid attention to punctuation as I read. You have to do this while you read poetry. So, what are my first impressions? This is the first step of close reading. Maybe I've read this and I've really keyed in on the imagery being used, talking about, you know, um, the flower and like the different colors and changing, and then like bring in like the sunset and sunrise and everything like that. So maybe this is really what I picked up on, and I'm thinking, well, this is pretty good imagery use. I really see what's going on. I'm also gonna say it's easy to read. The words lead nicely into each other. Um, and at the end of the day, it's observational poetry. Lots of poetry that we're going to read will be observational and very much connected to nature because poets and nature watching just goes hand in hand together. So these are my first impressions. Now, after my first impressions, maybe I got some notes. So maybe, down here I might just write my first impressions. Them right there. Now I'm going to go line by line and kind of take a look at this. And this is where we begin our close reading. We're not 100% making hard assumptions yet, because guess what? To say, yes, this is exactly this takes a lot of effort. And that's one of the benefits of close reading. That's kind of one of the transferable skills. In a world where we see one social media post and we say, yeah, that's probably true. Close reading kind of teaches us to take a closer look and do a little bit more digging. Um, the more you have me as a teacher, the more I'll trash on social media. So stick around, and I will keep on ragging on your favorite pastime. We look right here. Nature's first green is gold. Now, this is a super interesting line because right away they make a comparison. So they say nature's first green. Anyone who's been somewhere during springtime, like in a location with seasons. So let's say Manitoba. We know that we come out of winter. There's all the bare trees, and then there's that like bright and vibrant green that starts popping out. We know that nature has a first green, and now Frost basically right away makes a comparison between green and gold. Now, we need a little bit of, I'm going to say, in a sense, cultural context that we all naturally understand. We understand that gold is a symbol for first, for value, for, kind of like that prestige that everyone want because it's ranked at the very top. If we don't know that gold has this connotation attached to its name, we can't actually make an assumption as to what it means. However, since I'm going to assume most of us understand um, this context in which gold is being made, we can simply make this connection. Nature's first green is gold. Right away, Frost has made it clear to the reader, you know, that green, first green is number one. Then he goes into some consonants. Her hardest hue to hold. We won't get into why Frost might have used DHs. We just simply don't have time. You don't care to listen to that. But basically, putting the consonants aside, the soft consonants, what we end up seeing is that Frost says nature's first green is gold, first bloom is perfection, but very difficult to maintain. So there's this fleeting nature that's made right off the bat. So we're gonna go with a text box, except I can't find it, so now I'm just wasting time. There we go. Let's put this. There we go. So, first bloom is fleeting. We kind of can make that connection from these two lines. So then, all of a sudden, actually Frost establishes it in second line, her, and then her early leaves of flower. Once again, this is probably making some sort of connection or allusion to the idea of Mother Nature. We could go into the whole, era of the time and like that, the gender roles within power, and that the caring kind of connection that was linked to Mother Nature and the matriarchy. But we won't. So we see her early leaves of flower. Now, right now, what I've already noticed is this rhyme scheme. We're going to come back to this rhyme scheme after we do the first read. Her early leaves of flower, but only so an hour. So once again, uh, repetition is found here. It's not repetition of a certain word, but it's repetition of a certain idea. That the first bloom is fleeting, which apparently I can't spell, is repeated from line 1, 2 to 3, 4. So we know this is 100% the main message that Frost is kind of beating us over the head with. But only so an hour. Where are we? Only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. Um, so kind of now all of a sudden the cyclical nature of life is being brought forward. The more poetry you read, the more television you watch, movies you watch, Lion King style, the circle of life. It's a super, super common theme that we don't actually really have to look that much into. As soon as we see this idea of leaf subsiding to leaf, we know there's a very common reference of the cycle of life, that there's life and then there's death and then there's life, this constant cycle, that it will later be kind of more reinforced. So Eden sank to grief. Now I'm going to highlight this right here. um, I'll do it in red. We're going to come back to this because this is a very strong illusion, once again rooted in belief and culture, that if you are, if you are aware of this culture or belief, it's obvious. If you aren't, just like gold, it's difficult to say exactly what it means. So dawn goes down today. Once again, so we got this idea of like a sunrise being linked we got sunrise linked to the early flower and the first green, this brilliance of the first instance, and then it goes down to day. Now, see how Frost isn't talking about, the crunchy leaf in fall time, and they're not. He's not talking about dusk and nighttime. No, the actual tragedy or sadness to Frost is pointing out is that no longer being a child. So kind of that loss of almost innocence. It's not necessarily death. It's the loss of innocence that he's kind of keying in on. So dawn goes down to day. Once again, this cyclical nature. As soon as you kind of reference seasons and the process of a day within poetry, you are really leaning into that idea of that constant cycle. And then Frost, just to really make sure the reader gets it, that there's no way we can miss it, Frost ends with nothing gold can stay. Just right out saying it, nothing gold. We already know gold is first green based on the first line. Nothing, no first bloom can stay. Goes without saying, but beautiful way to say it. So after we kind of read through each line and we start to see the meaning, now we can actually go into our legitimate close reading. So this is just our pre-close close reading. Oh, Mr. Davidson has came in. We clap whenever Mr. Davidson comes in. Okay, where was I? Okay, so we've done kind of our pre-close reading, and now we have to key in on a few facts that we want to key in on. Now, since I'm using this to introduce the poem that you're going to be doing research on, and you're going to be analyzing, I do want to talk about this concept of illusion. So let's go to Eden sank to grief. Eden, this is referencing towards, you know, Garden of Eden, kind of like this idea of like the beginning of life. It's referencing, Christian belief, which is very popular in poems of this era. You know, couldn't write a poem without referencing it. It makes sense if you know the culture. So, for example, the poem that you're going to be analyzing is going to be an Anishinaabe poem. So if you are aware of Anishinaabe culture and belief systems, so you probably will have to do maybe a little less research. If you aren't aware of it, you're going to have to use the resources that I've given you much more extensively, because illusion really builds upon the meaning, because they don't have the poet or the author doesn't have to establish this brand new idea with their own symbols. By using illusion or symbolism, you can just toss out one or two words that has so much more meaning, because there's so much background and context linked to it. And just as I talked about before, gold in the first line, there's a strong assumption that the reader understands that gold is this pristine idea. Does this cap out at 15 minutes? If it does, might have to splice a video together. So now the next thing, once again, this is assuming prior knowledge. I've got prior knowledge for Frost, and I know that Frost very purposely uses rhyme. Frost was not a big believer that every word had to rhyme, but whenever he did rhyme, he used it well. So we see here this was actually a very, he used couplet rhyming, which wasn't overly popular for Frost to use for the entirety of the poem. But we also know, because, I've got prior knowledge, generally Frost, whenever he would rhyme, it would be to connect ideas together. So what I'm going to get you to do is I want you to take a look at the couplet rhymes and figure out what is the common